This is going to be the David Bowie tier list here. His studio albums, ranking all 25, from S+ here, which is, in my opinion, some of the best albums ever created, because I had to make this tier because there were just a few albums by David Bowie that I thought were kind of like the best of all time, to be honest. So they didn't fit with the other S's for me. So S is also still very, very amazingly fantastic. A is great, still pretty brilliant. B is okay. C is meh. And D is okay. It's a little bit maybe embarrassing. So we're going to start things off with David Bowie's debut album. Look at this in his little mop top here. This was actually quite entertaining when I first listened to it. It's exploring his musical, his kind of whimsical side. It was entertaining, but in a good way, I'm not too sure. But it was fun. But I have revisited it since and wasn't as fun on repeat listen, let's say. Just not really as good as his other works, of which are brilliant. And also, this kind of came out at the same time as Sgt. Pepper and also Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And he's kind of doing the similar thing here, but not quite as good. But it was still an enjoyable listen. But I just put that as a testament to Bowie's charisma on this, because Bowie is very charismatic and he is having a lot of fun on this. I would recommend giving this album a listen if you are familiar with Bowie's work. If you're not familiar, this is not a great place to start, because you'd be like, huh? Who is this guy? Is this the guy everyone's been going on about as a genius? But if you are familiar with his work, then I would give this a listen just to see where he started. And it's fun for that reason. It's definitely worth checking out to complete kind of your listening experience of David Bowie. And unfortunately, we're going to start in D. Don't worry, this is going to get a lot better. Okay, it is going to get a lot better. It's just starting off not too great. And I have decided to put it in D. I did put it in C at some point as well, because I did enjoy it as kind of like a novelty thing. But it's going in D, I'm sorry. Okay, so Space Oddity, also known as David Bowie as well. He kind of named 2 albums David Bowie. That's just the way it went. I think he kind of wanted to forget about the first album, I'm not going to lie. I feel like that might have been what was happening there. I think he was just like, hey, let's just pretend that the first album didn't happen, and let's just call it David Bowie again. And then everyone just called it Space Oddity, because I think it's kind of the standout track on it. So everyone was just like, oh, you know, the one with Space Oddity on it. So everyone just calls it Space Oddity. So I'm calling it Space Oddity. The song itself is one of his best songs and probably one of the greatest songs of all time. Unfortunately for me, the rest of the album is a little bit forgettable, a little bit directionless. I don't think he's found his feet quite yet. Another standout track was Signet Committee. I did enjoy that one. The rest I forget about, to be honest. But it does have Space Oddity on it. And I don't think I could put anything with Space Oddity on it as a D. So we're going to put that in C. It's not the greatest album, but he's still finding his feet here. Many of his other albums are going to be rated a lot higher. It takes a little while for David Bowie to find his feet, but I kind of like that about David Bowie's discography, because you get to see the journey of where he was on vocally as well, which you don't usually get to see with many artists. Usually a lot of artists just appear and they're just like freaking amazing right from the bat. But with Bowie, it takes a little while for him to find his feet. But this does have Space Oddity on it, so it's going in C. The album cover is S+. True, it's a pretty iconic album cover. Okay, next album, talking about iconic album covers, is The Man Who Sold the World. And this, for me, was a big step up. This sounds kind of like where Bowie is going to go. This kind of feels like a proto-Ziggy Stardust to me. There's also elements of prog rock in this, which is kind of cool, which he kind of doesn't really touch on again. Does in a little way, but not quite as expansive as he does in some of these songs. Still has a little bit of the problem of his songwriting feeling a little directionless for me, minus like a couple of songs. Minus, of course, like The Man Who Sold the World, which is a proper genius song, later covered by Nirvana as well, and many other people. This is the first album that has Mick Ronson on guitar, and he really does like add a lot to the sonic texture of this album. It's really quite heavy. It's quite full, it's quite chunky, it's quite heavy. And also, although Visconti was on the previous album a little bit, this one is kind of given his signature kind of sound, like his signature production sound that he kind of like formulated with T-Rex, and it's kind of got that sort of thing on it. We're kind of moving into his glam territory, as you can probably tell by the album cover itself, him in a dress, very iconic, very culturally important there, although Americans didn't get this album cover, which is a shame. But yeah, it's a pretty solid album. Some of the songwriting is not quite where he will go with his heights, but as a whole, this one's pretty solid. B tier for me on this one. Next one is Hunky Dory. It's a big one. It's a big old album, this one. Has some fantastic songs in it. Some of the best songs ever written, probably. This is an incredible collection of songs. Bowie, I feel, is using this album to refine his skills as a songwriter, which were a little bit lacking in the previous albums. And he does it really, really fantastically well. There's some all-time classics in this. There's Life on Mars. There's Changes. There's all sorts of things. There's Oh You Pretty Things as well as on there. Lots of hits, lots of great songs, lots of underrated songs in there as well, like Andy Warhol is a screen. It's very significant in Bowie's career. It's a big step up for him as a songwriter and leaving his mark on things. Lyrically, he's adding his kind of signature wordplay and picture painting, along with the storytelling that he's been doing in the previous albums as well. Vocally, he's kind of developed a style that really makes you want to pay attention to what he's saying as well. Really finding his feet on this one. I do think it lacks some of the theatrical edge that some of his albums to come have, but as an album for a songwriter, just songwriting purposes alone, this is a fantastic album. There are points where he kind of does mimic artists like Wholesale and kind of just goes for a Rolling Stones thing, a Bob Dylan thing, a Lou Reed thing, but he still does put a little twist on it, and it's still enjoyable to hear him kind of exploring these areas. I personally quite like the rough production of it, although it might be a turn off to some because it might feel a bit dated to some, but I kind of like it because it kind of makes it feel like a collection of demos of songs that he's kind of working on. Maybe he's going to give them to other people, which he did kind of do with Mott the Hoople. For its significance to Bowie's career and for the songwriting alone, I have put this at A. This has been quite a divisive album in the Discord though. This is also viewed as many people's favourite Bowie album, and some people think this is his best album. I do see why. It's not mine, but it's still a very solid album and very significant in Bowie's career. Hunky Dory, A for me. Okay, next album does blow this one out the water, though. I got to say, this next one is Ziggy Stardust. This is an all-time classic album. It's probably one of the greatest rock albums ever made, to be honest. It's also definitely the most definitive glam rock album ever made in terms of style, the way he's dressed, the character in this album. Very definitive, defined what glam rock is. Very pivotal album, very culturally important album. And it's a fantastic album as well. I always think to myself, okay, Ziggy Stardust, is it a bit overrated? And then I listen to it and I'm just like, it is not overrated. This album is fantastic. Every song is a banger on it. And the theme and concept, the fact that it's a concept album as well, really adds to it. And it's done super well. He delivers it amazingly well as well. Especially when you get to things like Rock and Roll Suicide at the end, where he's going you're not alone. It's just epic moments all over the place there. A real thrilling and entertaining journey. This is S. It might be S+ to some. It's not quite S+ to me, I'm sorry. But this is S, which is still some of the greatest stuff of all time for me. S, it's all gone up like this. Look at this. Look at this, all up in a tower right now. His career has gone from this to this. It's actually crazy. Not many years have passed between this album and this album. Very crazy trajectory here. It's awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next album, which is Aladdin Sane. And Bowie described this record as Ziggy Goes to America, and I think this is a pretty good summation of what this album is. It's kind of taking what was happening on Ziggy Stardust, the glam sound, and adding things like American things like rock and roll, jazz, doo-wop, some Broadway musical theatre in there as well, which has kind of always been a part of his sound, but a little bit more so in things like Time, big example there. Even Lady Grinning Soul has a bit of that. more of the rock and roll jazz sort of thing in Panic in Detroit and things like this as well. And Watch That Man. Weirdly mixed album. If you listen to this album, his vocals are very, very, very low in the mix. Strangely mixed album. Does kind of add to it a little bit though. This is a more down-to-earth record than Ziggy, which was obviously out in space. But this one's a little bit more down-to-earth. And I think the griminess, the muckiness of the mix kind of adds to that feeling of Ziggy hitting the kind of the American streets there and experiencing the world in a different kind of way. Standout tracks, of course, you got Gene Genie, you got Lady Grinning Soul, which is kind of an underrated Bowie tune in my opinion. Iconic album cover, maybe the most one of the most iconic album covers, the most iconic portrait album cover, I'd probably say, of someone that there can be. This picture is kind of like thrown up everywhere in art galleries all over the place. Track list is a little inconsistent for me. I don't love all of the songs. Above Hunky Dory for me though. Yeah, everyone thinks this is Ziggy. I mean, they're not wrong. This is kind of Ziggy as well, but it's different era Ziggy. Ziggy didn't have the lightning bolt. He had a circle on his head. Diamond Dogs. I'm quite fond of this album. It's a little bit of a mess of an album. This is kind of made up of various abandoned projects. He had kind of like a few kind of conceptual albums in mind. He had a 1984 concept album that he wanted to do, but he couldn't get the rights. He had a Ziggy musical that he wanted to do. That didn't kind of work out. He had something else involving a crime syndicate called the Diamond Dogs, which is where the name of this album comes from. But I love the mess of this album. I particularly love the first half of this album though, where it does kind of just like lead one into the other. I like the really, really griminess of this one. You thought Aladdin Sane was grimy. This one is a whole lot more. There's a sleaziness to this album, which I really like as well. It feels like you're being corrupted when you're kind of listening to this album. And it's kind of like he's starting to do sounds which will define some of my favorite Bowie albums later on. He's kind of doing that soul thing in a few tracks. Sweets Thing, I think, is the song where he starts doing that as well, which is a little bit similar to Word on a Wing, I feel, which he does later. The oh, it's a sweet thing. Kind of reminds me of love is just the word on a wing, kind of thing. So he's kind of exploring stuff that he's going to be doing in Station to Station. I'm very, very glad none of his concepts kind of like went through, because I think this album is better for being the mess that it is. I also do prefer this over Aladdin Sane. Young Americans. Bowie proves his range yet again on this one. He's making a soul record this time. What he penned as Plastic Soul. Record has a very defined sound throughout. The group of musicians that he's working with are pretty damn incredible on this album. The band sound fantastic. The backing vocals, of course, need a particular shout out. Got a hugely talented set of backing vocalist. Luther Vandross is on this, who wasn't known at that point. This is also Carlos Alomar's first album that he's on. He is a big part of some of Bowie's greatest records, like super important to his arrangements. He does a lot of the arrangement stuff. He does a lot of the funk stuff on guitar as well. He'll be on many, many, many other Bowie albums, and does a fantastic job on this one. The first three tracks are amazing. You got Young Americans, you got Win, you have Fascination. These three tracks are proper incredible, and then it ends with iconic Fame, featuring John Lennon himself on that one. Also features a not so great cover of All Across the Universe, which I'm not a bigger fan of. I did originally put this in B tier, but I have put this up to A tier now, but it is behind, it's like the bottom of A tier. The more I've listened to this album, I have kind of grown to like it more. And while the songwriting is not the best, minus the tracks that I've mentioned, it has some iconic songs on it where it's great and the band sound amazing, and it's just a vibe album. It's just like, if you put it on, you're gonna have a good time. But it is a little overshadowed by this next album here, which is Station to Station. And This is probably one of my favorite Bowie albums of all time, so I feel like I might as well just place it in its rightful place right now, because like there's kind of, I've already given that away, so it's already S+. S+ for Station to Station, but let me just gush about it for a while. First of all, this is during a pretty bad time, health-wise, mentally-wise, in Bowie's life. In fact, Bowie was so out of it that he claims that he didn't remember making this album due to the bad state he was in, caused by his addiction to cocaine at the time. But yeah, this album is a real masterpiece, so it's a shame that he does not remember this album, because like making it as well, because I think we lose a lot on like the making of a very special piece of art there. There's not a lot of like of recollection of actually how this album was made. The band have a lot of chemistry, contains some of Bowie's best vocal performances. Wild is the Wind, Word on a Wing, so many good stuff. From the first eerie sounds of that title track, you know you're in for a ride with this album. 10-minute song, amazing musical changes, amazing journey that piece takes you on. Sounds like a moving demon train setting foot, which it basically is about. Golden Years, one of his most infectious pop songs, a song that I find myself returning to all the time. Word on a Wing, beautiful, incredible song declaring, it feels like desperation in song form. A beautiful work of art for me. Amazing vocal performance. It's followed by TVC 15, which is also a fun track. A little bit less serious on that one. It's a song about someone being eaten by a television, but love that song a lot. Also contains the cover of Wild is the Wind, a jazz standard, but I think Wild is the Wind is, by Bowie, is probably the definitive version of that song. Sorry, Nina Simone, your version is great as well, but Bowie version for me is the definitive version. Maybe it's because I heard it first. I don't know. I think he absolutely nails that vocal performance. I'm glad that he was able to make this album. I'm amazed he survived making this album, because he was living on a diet of cocaine, red peppers, and milk at the time. Very, very bad place. He was very paranoid at the time as well, having moments of psychosis, things like this as well. But somehow it created this album, which is just amazing work of art. Station to Station, S+, one of my favorite Bowie albums, one of my favorite albums of all time. Let's move on. This is Low. I've been trying to convince everyone else in the Discord of this, but this is S+ all the way. S+ all the way. This is the start of his Berlin trilogy. This is my favorite Bowie album of all time, and also probably one of my favorite albums of all time in general. But yeah, 2 S+s in a row. Artistically, Bowie is in his bag during this period of time. So this is the beginning of the Berlin trilogy. This is where Bowie went to Berlin to kind of get clean of his addictions, focus on music in order to kind of, you know, aid with that. But yeah, this is a very special album for me. This album tells a lot of stories for me, just in the way it's set up. The first half of it is kind of like very short draft-like song snippets. Most of them are like 1 minute, 2 minutes long. And then the second half is all kind of ambient pieces of instrumental music, aided by Brian Eno, of course, on this one. But the way it kind of goes on this journey is what it's all about for me. I have kind of a mental image from the beginning of this album, like some sort of city like is rich and thriving. This is what I'm visualizing in my head at the peak of its success. And as the album goes through, this city is kind of becoming more barren wasteland, more dystopian. This is kind of just my metaphorical thing that I view in my head. But it also tells an internal story of Bowie trying to find himself, like past the drugs, past the masks and things like this. I think this is the first Bowie album where he is just David Bowie. There is no character here. It's just David Bowie. There's no Thin White Duke. There's no Ziggy Stardust. There's no Halloween Jack. There's none of these things here. It's just Bowie in his true form. But yeah, it's about his internal journey, kind of like trying to find who he is. He's kind of scared of the person that might lurk under it all. Lots of dealing with kind of past monsters, skeletons in the closet, going crazy alone in his room, detoxing from the addiction. But it gradually kind of evolves into a more somber, sober acceptance of himself in the kind of ambient work. It's weird as well because Bowie is kind of barely in this album. He's kind of just like there every now and then, just singing small little bits, and it feels like his presence is kind of presiding over it, like from a distance, haunting it like a ghost there amongst all the sound textures and everything. I think this is an absolute work of art. Low is my favorite Bowie album, one of my favorite albums of all time. It's the combination of both sides that kind of make it one of the greatest albums of all time for me. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So Heroes. You may have heard me talk about this one before from the 1001 albums tier list. I've changed my mind a little bit about it. I still kind of hold the same opinions, but not as strongly as I did on the previous take of mine. This is a brilliant but oddly paced album. I still find it a bit weirdly paced. The instrumental tracks on this album aren't quite as impactful as the ones on Low, but I have grown to like them quite a bit. And I've grown to like the atmosphere in this album quite a lot. It's the only one of the Berlin trilogy made entirely in Berlin, and I've kind of come to view the instrumental tracks more as like paintings of locations rather than an internal journey like Low is. So I've kind of viewed it in a different way. They are named after places in Berlin as well, so there is that to it also. It's more an external picture than an internal one, so I've kind of grown to like them a lot more than my previous opinion on this album. The production is probably some of my favorite production on a Bowie album. It's gritty, it's dark, it's very, very layered, but you can still hear everything. To me, musically, especially the first half of this album, kind of is Bowie at his most Bowie, as in like he doesn't feel like he's trying to copy anyone else at this point. He's kind of taking everything he's learned and applying it all at once, and it comes up with a very unique sound. The first half is still some of my favorite Bowie songs in general, from Beauty and the Beast until Blackout. All amazing. That would all be S+ territory. I think the only thing it suffers from is pacing issues for me. I still find it a little bit weird that it goes through this dark instrumental journey and then just ends with The Secret Life of Arabia. All of a sudden, I still find that a little strange, and it still wigs me out a little bit. It still jars me. But I am going to give this 5 out of 5 on the 1001 album tier list now, and it's also going an S for me now as well. It has grown to an S. I could not deny it any longer. I was like, oh, damn it. I actually really like this album kind of all the way through now. S. Okay, so Lodger. My wife has been playing this album non-stop, so it's gradually moving down in my estimations because I'm just like hearing it over and over again, and it's kind of driving me mad. No, but this is a great album. It's a quirky album. It feels like the Berlin trilogy is kind of like a estranged cousin. It kind of shows where he's leading up to with like subsequent albums like Scary Monsters, like Let's Dance as well. It's got elements of those two albums happening in there. This album uses a lot of Brian Eno's Oblique Strategies, which is like a little card game where you pull a card and it gives you something like reuse the chords of a song and write a new song, which is done on a couple of tracks there. And it kind of adds to that quirky feeling of it because it kind of just... it goes unexpected places. It's kind of Bowie kind of delving into world music as well, but I kind of think his delving into world music might be the best on this album because it's not very obvious what he's doing. He kind of does it wrong a lot of the time, and that kind of makes something more interesting instead of like a direct clone of something there. But I enjoy this album a lot. Kind of lies in the shadows of its two predecessors. A lot of the time it gets forgotten about. It's a little more commercial than the previous two, than Heroes and Low, but it's a little less commercial than Scary Monsters and Let's Dance, so it kind of lies in the middle. It's a great album overall. We're going for A. I think we're going top of A. We're going top of A. We're going top of A. Let's go. It won't let me do top of A, but it's going top of A. Okay, so next album is Scary Monsters. This is an album so good in the estimation of critics that every album after this, Like every album, apart from these two, and that one. Oh no, that one was, actually. I think every album after this, except Blackstar, out of respect, has been described as the best Bowie album since Scary Monsters. So critics love this album for sure, because every album is like, this is the best Bowie album since Scary Monsters. This is the best Bowie album since Scary Monsters. Like almost everyone. Ours didn't either. Okay, that's fair enough. Here, Bowie is kind of taking everything that he learned from the Berlin trilogy and taking it to like world domination levels of kind of commerciality there, but it's still extremely interesting, extremely jagged, extremely artistic. But yeah, somehow he manages to create a very highly accessible commercial album from these weird pieces of music, from Robert Fripp going crazy on his guitar, from him kind of just yelling things half of the time. Very strange vocal performance in it, but they kind of like work brilliantly. I don't remember what the song is. I think it's Kingdom Come, where Bowie just kind of goes, and that's kind of like for the entire song. Some of Bowie's weirdest vocal performances, but I love it for it. I love the eccentricity of the vocal performances on this album, from him screaming on the beginning track to him going absolutely wild on Teenage Wildlife. Just another teenage wildlife. It's just insane. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful album. To be honest, an album like this is why Bowie, to me, is one of the most important artistic forces to ever exist in music. He's able to take the bizarre sounds from other cultures, from the fringes of society, and make it accepted by the masses, and make it like, you know, everyone's just like, oh yeah, this stuff is great. This is going S tier for me. Also contains some of his best singles, like Fashion, Ashes to Ashes. What else is on there? There's more than that, right? Ashes to Ashes, Fashion, Up the Hill Backwards, Scary Monsters itself. I think I do prefer this to... No. Ziggy is a more solid album. Ziggy's going above it. Okay, so next one, Let's Dance. Let's Dance. This is Bowie's best-selling album by a country mile. I think it's only rivaled by Ziggy Stardust. This is Bowie trying something he never tried before, and it's just a straight pop album of hits, mostly. Got Nile Rodgers to produce this one, which was a brilliant choice. And the even more inspired choice was also to get Stevie Ray Vaughan on the lead guitar on here, because it kind of creates a very unique sound. Even for a straight pop album, a Bowie straight pop album isn't that straightforward. It still has a lot of quirks, it still has a lot of inventiveness to it. You don't have to search much further than the song Ricochet to hear that, with its kind of backward drum beats. It's roots in reggae. It's kind of like talking on a radio stuff there as well. This is a great album. It is a straight pop album, but it's Bowie doing a straight pop album absolutely incredibly well. We're going with S tier for this one. So Bowie has had a fantastic run here. I think from Hunky Dory up until now, it has all been A to S plus albums, which is absolutely mad run for any sort of artist for me to like a string of albums that much in their career. But we have, well, I think we're going to break that streak now, because we have Tonight. Bowie has expressed disdain for this particular era, so I don't have many qualms rating this lowly myself, because Bowie hated this as well, so it's okay. There's some really embarrassing, they are embarrassing. There's some really embarrassing kind of reggae versions of songs that he wrote and released with Iggy Pop. I don't know why Iggy kind of agreed to this and is kind of on the album on himself, because he kind of just, a lot of the songs on this album are from Lust for Life and the stuff that he wrote in Berlin with Iggy Pop, and they're just kind of worse versions of them songs. And even the title track is from Lust for Life, I believe. There are a couple of good points, though. I do like the actual original songs that Bowie wrote for this album. I do like Lovin' the Alien. I do like Blue Jean. Even the artwork has turned kind of not great here, like stylistically. All the artwork here is just brilliant. Even the artwork has kind of turned a bit naff. Bowie, why? Why did you do this, bro? D tier, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is D tier. I'm not a fan of this album really at all, but nor is Bowie. So it's okay. Next album is Never Let Me Down. And I am afraid that Bowie is still kind of letting me down and himself down. Once again, Bowie didn't like these albums, okay? This is just a really bad spot for Bowie creatively. He's kind of trying to ride on the success of Let's Dance, and he wasn't really feeling what he was doing on this one. He was trying to keep in the place where he was commercially. It feels like Bowie here is really trying very, very hard to be pop and commercial, but it's not really satisfying at all. It kind of just like falls flat, very flat. In fact, if you're going to do a pop album, it has to be catchy, which it really isn't this album as well. And the production on it is very, very irritating. Just really big 80s drums. It's all of the stuff of the 80s that are bad. There's a lot of good stuff about the 80s, but for some reason, Bowie kind of picked up all of the bad stuff. I would say more about this album, but I generally don't remember it very well because it's just not that memorable either. I'm afraid this is probably my least favorite Bowie album. This is right at the bottom for me. Tonight had its moments, but Never Let Me Down doesn't really have any moments, in my opinion. Okay, so next stop is Black Tie, White Noise. A bit of a return for form. You might even say it's his best album since Scary Monsters. Bowie is sounding quite comfortable in his own skin here, and kind of free of the pressures of superstardom. The writing on this album feels a lot more personal, a lot more down to earth. Some of the production feels a little bit dated, but it's still interesting. It has a charm to it still. Bowie is starting to heavily explore the electronic side of music, which he does a lot more in subsequent albums. To a better degree, to be honest, although this is not a bad attempt. Nile Rodgers is back for this one. It's pretty solid up until Palace Athena, and then after that it gets a little bit middle of the road and not too exciting. It has Jump They Say on it, which is a fantastic track. I really like that song a lot. And the title track is also a fun little pop jam. And we're going to put this in B tier. I do think I might prefer it over Man Who Sold the World. Let's put that above Man Who Sold the World. I'm not going to have much to say about this next one, so this is going to be pretty quick. It's a very sonically gorgeous album. The Buddah of Surburbia is this next album. It was meant to be a soundtrack. It kind of feels like one. It's probably best listened to like a soundtrack. It's probably Bowie's least known record, but it's definitely worth a visit if anyone wants to kind of explore this era. There's some great songs on it, though. I really like the sonic textures. It's very pleasing to the ears. Might be a tiny bit too smooth around the edges sometimes, like his act is lacking a little bit of edge. There is some ambient tracks which would probably be best left in the soundtrack. They're not very interesting by themselves, but I did enjoy this album. I just don't have much to say about it, but it is a B. It is a B. This is probably my favorite output of Bowie in the 90s. This is Outside. This is probably Bowie's most ambitious and most underrated album, I feel. It's incredibly inventive, very musically out there, mixing theatre with industrial electronic beats and with jazz as well. Only Bowie could do this and pull it off. It's a full-on concept album. There is a story, there's a plot here somewhere, but it is non-linear, so it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of jagged. It's kind of distorted. It's kind of like a concept album if David Lynch made that concept album. So it's kind of a bit dense, a bit difficult to understand. This album kind of rivals some of his greatest work, in my opinion. There's some tracks that even supersede it. There's Voyeur of Utter Destruction, there's Deranged, there's We Prick You, there's Outside, the title track itself. I do think these are some of Bowie's best work. I unfortunately do have the opinion that it's a little bloated in places, though. Tracks like The Motel, the segues are great on first listen. On repeat listens, because the story is so vague, they're not so fun to listen to after that. But it's fun to hear Bowie do all the different character voices. A Small Plot of Land as well as a little bit kind of overruns its length in time without going anywhere in particular. And Wishful Beginnings is probably the best example of that for me. I know a lot of people here liked that one, but the constant laugh kind of does grate on me after a while on that particular track. Atmosphere-wise, which I think is the biggest strength of this album. I don't think storytelling is his biggest strength. I'm not sure songwriting is his biggest strength, but I think atmosphere, this might be the most atmospheric Bowie album. It really takes you to a place. I don't know where that place is. I often listen to this album at night driving in London. That's the place for me for this particular album. It's kind of like just dimly lit streets in the middle of the night. I mean, it's meant to be kind of like a noir detective story. But yeah, it's a solid album. I would love to be cool and rate this S, but I'm going to put this at the top of A tier for me. I can't quite justify an S with my own opinion. I do think it's probably deserving of an S or S+, but for me, it's the top of A. Okay, Earthling. I'm not going to trash it because I think it's a very well-made album, Earthling. I've never been able to get along with this album. I kind of like the music in isolation, but when matched with the songs and David Bowie's vocals on this album, it doesn't click for me for some reason, which I know it kind of makes it interesting in a way, though. But it's an interesting that I don't really find enjoyable. So that's my problem with this here. It kind of jars me more than it pleases me in this case, where a lot of his weird juxtapositions actually do please me as well and makes me excited. This one just makes me feel like, this just sounds wrong for me. I don't know why. It's a me problem though. It's just something that doesn't click on this one. I think it's a very interesting album, and I do like that Bowie went here, drum and bass album, but it feels like, unlike with some of his other albums where kind of like Bowie delved into a genre and really, really like fully explored that genre and all of its kind of intricacies and the way it kind of works, that this kind of like feels like he wrote some songs you might do early on, like maybe in Space Oddity, and kind of just stuck a drum and bass beat on it to me. And I think that's why it kind of irks me a bit. There's some songs where it doesn't do that. There's songs like I'm Afraid of Americans, of course, which is a fantastic Bowie track and maybe one of my not favorite. Outside has better stuff, but up there with the stuff in Outside for his 90s stuff for me. I'm Afraid of Americans is a brilliant track. Not disputing that, but yeah, I just don't get along with it. That is my main problem. It feels like remixes of songs Bowie has written rather than really delving into the drum and bass thing itself. I'm going to put it just above Space Oddity for me in C tier. I know it's very low. A lot of people like this album. A lot of people think this is his best 90s album. I think Outside is best a 90s album. This next album I can't really respect for its inventiveness. I think this is just quite a weak album, this next album, which is Hours. I think it's quite a weak album. It honestly feels a little bit uninspired to me. Thursday's Child is a nice song. Majority of the album feels a little bit bland. There's nothing really particularly bad about it. It's just so very, very bland. The production also feels rather off, and I did look it up. It's kind of him and his guitar player, Reeves Gabrel, at the time, and I don't think Reeves is really much of a producer. In fact, I don't think he has any other production credits other than this album. So it's a very homemade album. The guitar sounds like directly DI'd with like zero anything on it a lot of the time. It sounds like directly DI'd with a distortion pedal. It's very mucky, as in like muddy, and not like gritty, not in a pleasant way. It's just kind of muffled kind of thing. The latter half of the album did have some more interesting tracks, but still nothing particularly memorable. Despite that, it doesn't really reach the lows of his 80s period, but it's going at the bottom of C tier for me just because it's very uninteresting, really. So Heathen. Okay, so this is an extremely mature album from David Bowie. It's introspective as well as retrospective, looking back on his career. He muses a lot on getting older, on mortality, on spirituality. I find this quite a moving, emotional album, intermingled with some great cover songs. I would usually maybe criticize an album for having 3 covers on it, but to me, this kind of adds to the concept, the emotional concept of the album, of not really needing to prove yourself, of kind of looking back and kind of like being humble and just appreciating other things that you kind of like despite yourself. The original songs on this are also fantastic. We've got songs like Sunday, we've got Slow Burn, we've got Slip Away, all of which I think rival some of his greatest songs that he's ever made. Tony Visconti is also back on the production of this album, and I always feel those two work absolutely brilliant together. They haven't worked together for 20 years at this point, and this album is absolutely immaculately produced. I think it, with Heroes, I think this is probably my favorite produced Bowie album. It just sounds absolutely fantastic. There's so much space despite the tracks being quite heavily layered, and each track has many interesting effective sounds and instrument parts. I think it's a beautiful album, mature, reflects on getting older. There's a sadness to it as well, but an acceptance to it. I do think I prefer it to Outside to me. I do think I do. I think I do, which is, I think the reason why I can't quite put Outside up to S. I just prefer Heathen that little bit more, and I don't like it enough for that to be S. But it's a very solid A, top of A. They're border. Maybe I need another tier. Maybe I need A+. These are A+, okay? This one and this one are A+. Reality. This album has its moments. I really like the first 3 songs. New Killer Star is awesome. It's a jam. I love that song a lot. Has a decent cover of The Modern Lovers' Pablo Picasso. Quite like that as well. Never Get Old is a little corny, but it's a fun pop song. I still enjoy it quite a bit. After that, for me, falls off a bit and just becomes a little bit bland and uninteresting for me. There's still some interesting moments. For Ice, I'm going to mention Bring Me the Disco King. Also works as quite an impactful end to the album, especially lyrically. I don't like it as much as she does, but I do think it's a decent track. It's a C for me, I'm afraid. It's a C for me. Just above Hours there. If it carried on as strong as it started, then it would be higher, but it does really quite peter off quite a bit. Reality. It's not all it's cracked up to be, is it really? We're approaching Bowie's last 2 albums here, so this is the next day. A Bowie album that I actually remember coming out, maybe the only one that I remember coming out, apart from Blackstar. I remember hearing Where Are We Now and being entranced by it and the video itself. I was actually kind of annoyed as well at Bowie. I was like, how dare you write another classic? How can you do this? You're like, how old now? It was also just a very exciting time in general for a new Bowie album to be coming out. That was just very exciting because I'd not really experienced the launch of that, and it was kept secret as well. And he hadn't had an album in almost in longer than a decade at this point. So it was kept secret, and just suddenly David Bowie is back. So it was very exciting at the time. I also remember really enjoying this album. Unfortunately, on revisit, I didn't enjoy this album as much, which I'm actually kind of a bit sad about. It does have some fantastic moments. It has a lot of charm. The title track, Stars Are Out Tonight, If I Can See You, and Heat are some standout tracks that I really love. Overall, I felt a lack of vitality to it compared to some of his previous work. Much of the songs felt a little bit filler to me, in my opinion, maybe not in others, and maybe a tiny bit too fan servicey at times. I know it's kind of the point of this album, but it felt fan servicey, and I don't think it kind of like matched the heights of his earlier stuff that he is trying to kind of replicate here, and it doesn't really have its own personality, in my opinion. I fully expected to give this album an A, however, it just fell a little short of that for me. Still a solid album with a lot of charm, though. Top of B tier, on the border, B+. Okay, right. Final album, Blackstar. This album is obviously a masterpiece for more than one reason. It's a masterpiece without the reasons for its creation. But the reasons for this creation is because Bowie had been diagnosed with cancer, and it was pretty terminal at the time. So Bowie kind of knew that he had not very much time left, and he kind of wanted to give one final thing to the world before he passed. I hadn't listened to this album since 2016 because it's a little bit too painful for me to listen to at times. It moved me profoundly then, and it still moves me in the same way now. We listened to it as a group on Discord because I needed emotional support. But yeah, we listened to this together, and I thought I had it together, man. I thought I had it together. And then he did this yelp in Tis a Pity. And it just broke me. It really did at that point in time. He just did these 3 yelps in a row. One it just felt like such a expression of raw emotion in that period of time. Part frustration at not having the power in his voice that he used to, not having the power in his body that he used to. Part fear of what he was going through at the time. And the last one he did as a woo like that, and that really got me as well. And it's just like using the music just to forget it all and just kind of like have a great time just with the band as well. So, but that also just really overwhelmed me with emotion. That like here is Bowie just like for one last time having a fantastic time with music at that point. Like the first yelp was like an the second one like a and then last one was a woo, and it just like, oh my god, my thoughts just kind of hit me there in the feels. There's more than one reason for this album to kind of like affect you in that way. I could kind of talk about it all day though, is the thing, but you know the songs. There's Blackstar, there's Lazarus, there is the track that really needs mentioning for me, which is I Can't Give It Everything Away, which never fails to just bring me to tears, really does. Something about that song, something about the way he keeps repeating the lines, I can't give everything away, and with the chords that it's backed by, it has a different meaning every time I hear it. Some is just acceptance of his situation, some is a regret at not being able to give enough art, but I'm going to tell you, Bowie, that you really did give enough fantastic art to us all. Like, you don't have to worry about that. Another is kind of a bit cheeky, where he's like, hey, I can't give everything away, you know what I mean? I'd like to imagine that, like, on his deathbed, that he was like, have people figured out what Blackstar is about yet? And someone said no. And he was like, good. And then he just went, and then the world figured out what Blackstar was about, and I was like, oh my god. And it's just such an effective piece of art that way. Just the way it's the way you went about it all. It's just so well, it's awe-inspiring, really. Like, I don't know how you could do this. It's a really fantastic album. But even apart from all of that, even if he was still alive today, this would be some of Bowie's best work. He really just set himself out to create something new and daring and as good as his best work that he's ever done. Like Low, like Station to Station, they seem to exist in like a different universe. It's kind of outside of time. It's just this own Bowie universe. It kind of doesn't. It's just suspended in reality. And this is going S+. All these three S+ are equal for me, by the way. That's why S+ exists. There's kind of no favorite here. No favorite here. They're all of my favorite there. I just put it there for ease. Yeah, such an achievement, such a gift. The more I listen to this album, actually, the more hardened I feel, which is a good thing. It really feels like you're kind of facing death in the face, and that is kind of strengthening. You know, doing that. It's like, hey, maybe I don't have to fear as much if Bowie can do this and just be like directly stare death right in its face and create such a powerful piece of work and relatively fearlessly do this, then maybe I can. But even musically, as I say, it's just like exploring on new things. He's drawing from like Kendrick Lamar, he's drawing from Death Grips, he's drawing from Radiohead. It shows his appetite for new things, still even at 69 years of age, or 68 years of age during the time that he made this, because it was released on his birthday and then he died 2 days afterwards. Wonderful, wonderful album, S+. This concludes my Bowie tier list here. I am very, very thoroughly impressed with Bowie's discography. As you can see, most of his albums here are really like A and above. Okay, I want to see what the general vote is like now. Everyone, let's see what the general vote is like. Everyone's been voting on their favorite Bowie album themselves, and we want to see the general consensus. We've had 148 participants, which is pretty damn awesome there, and 722 votes in total. So thank you very much for voting. We should have a pretty definitive view of what your favorite Bowie albums are. Okay, not too dissimilar. Not too dissimilar in the S+ tier from me. We've got Low at the top. Well done, everyone. Well done. Congratulations. The correct opinion here. We got Station to Station there. We have Blackstar there. We have Ziggy Stardust, which is, I do kind of agree, like, intellectually with. We have Outside. Oh, spicy. But not far off. Not far off. We kind of agree then. Probably the biggest disputes here is The Next Day. That is probably the biggest dispute. Maybe Outside, but I kind of agree with you. I'm not going to lie. the next day is the biggest dispute, I think. The next day is the biggest dispute here. But it's still pretty varied opinions here. If you enjoyed this video and would like to support me in what I do, then maybe you'd like to think about joining my Patreon. VIP members get access to all the covers you see here and more. Exclusive videos, all of my original songs, and demos of new tracks I am working on are available to Essential members and above. And finally, VIP members also receive a little gift from me in the mail for every 4 months they are subscribed. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.